Hey dumplings, it's Dave Desai. Today we need to talk about some craziness that is happening online over the debate with Jungkook and his privacy at the airport. I also wanted to get into a prison sentence and what happened there. So hater or not, make sure you subscribe with the notification bell on. Grab your dumpling at Spilling Mug merch and let's get into it. So if you aren't aware, this is a bit of a darker tea to start with, but we should talk about it, and I'm curious to hear about your debate on this situation. Trigger warning, this is about the Seungri case from Big Bang. So if you don't know what happened, I don't want to get too into it because it's quite dark and also not rated PG and not appropriate for this very family-friendly channel here with a host here that has 7 husbands. I'm going to give you a lighter version and a much less darker version here. If you want a more darker, more real version, you'll have to look it up. Seungri was accused of being a pimp and selling women to investors, and then also accused of illegal overseas gambling to get illegal foreign goods, crude pictures, threats, and assaults. So a lot of charges are being thrown at him. I think it was about 9 counts. Seungri was definitely someone that a lot of people looked up to, and Big Bang was definitely a group that was a part of a lot of people's childhood. So not even if this actually happened or not, but just the fact that he was accused and seeing that headline was quite enough to kind of be shocking. I think it pokes people's bubble and it breaks it, so it then snaps people back into reality and they're like, oh, these things exist. And then it's quite disappointing, right? Obviously, it's even more sad to think of the victims. Seungri denied these claims, and initially he was going to get 3 years in prison, but I think some of those claims were proven false, and thus now he is only allegedly getting 18 months. I am very curious to know how you feel about that sentence, whether you think it was too light or if you simply don't believe he is guilty of any of it. But I wanted to talk about this because I thought the netizens' reactions to his sentence was quite interesting. For some netizens, initially hearing 3 years, it was quite shocking on its own that crimes of this magnitude will only be charged for 3 years. And the difference is, a lot of times with celebrities or whatever, it's not like they get the traditional prison. If so, the government would be held liable for knowingly putting a prisoner in danger. Being famous to the point where maybe everyone in prison knows you would put them at risk of many things, right? So my opinion or theory is that even if he is going to jail for the full sentence, his sentence is not the same as if a regular person went to jail for 3 years. But also my theory is that a regular person would have gotten more. Netizens were confused as to why, because Seungri had all this money, and at one point it was alleged that Big Bang had more money than YG, which is crazy to me because if they had all this money, why allegedly do the things they're being accused of? Why not just go to an island somewhere and just retire, enjoy your life? Like, allegedly running illegal businesses is stressful. You gotta keep an eye out for Selena. Anyway, that's just my thought. I'm curious to hear what comes of this and what will happen after the year, because we will see him out pretty soon. A year will fly by and then the headlines will change as he is released. I do hope he takes this time for himself to really reflect, and hopefully after the release, he decides to retire from music. I hope he takes the rest of his life and goes away somewhere. I hope he stays out of the media. I think it's a bad representation of maybe some of the laws over there, and a bad example that you can be accused of doing all these things and said to be guilty and serve very little time. There's other concerns with the laws in Korea, and some that I wish would have had more immediate action, and they don't really. Recently, I believe Korea enacted this anti-stalking law. This was put in place to help everyone, because everyone can have stalkers, but definitely put in place to help celebrities. Given these laws, a lot of action that involves stalking, Korea can possibly put you in jail, I think. So stalker fans have been put out of commission in a way. So keep in mind, a lot of stalker fans are now way less likely to do anything, because before they wouldn't be thrown in jail, but now yes. When Jungkook recently flew from Korea to LA to work on some private solo projects, there ended up being a controversy involving him at the airport. Just some backstory, there are probably only like 10 people in the world that get mobbed everywhere they go. And some of the most famous and successful people you can think of, such as Ariana Grande, Lady Gaga, or whatever, would not even constitute as part of that 10. They can't go anywhere without being recognized, but like mobbed, where they have to run and hide in a dumpster somewhere to get away from the crowd, this happens to so few people. I think the closest example you can say to being mobbed is probably the president. No one anywhere wouldn't know the president, and everyone would take out their phones and take a picture. And the president cannot simply walk into a restaurant and just sit there and eat casually because of being mobbed and safety. Whereas someone maybe like a pop star might just have a younger audience, and the older audience would not know who they are, so if they're at an older restaurant, they may not get as much attention. BTS I would put in the category of Justin Bieber, Gaga, Ariana Grande, etc. While they will get recognized everywhere they go, they don't get mobbed everywhere. Jungkook can still run to the supermarket, pick up banana milk, and no one asks him to take a photo. And so that is why we don't see headlines like Jimin went down to get food and it was crushed by 50 people. In fact, we are able to hear stories of BTS being able to eat at a restaurant restaurant in peace, meaning most of the time they will be safe and fine. So why am I saying this? Because Jungkook entered the airport and there were so many paparazzi, reporters, and fans that were there. It became quite controversial because people were mad at these reporters and fans saying that they were bothering Jungkook at the airport, and Jungkook hates this, accusing some of these fans as sasaengs and accusing them of being the same type of people that would break into Jungkook's flight. But accusing someone showing up at the airport to meet and see their favorite idol as a sasaeng is a bit much. BTS puts out an event calendar every year or so with their plans on where they're going to be and travel plans. Why do they do this if they hate the idea of fans showing up at the airport? In airports, there's also secret entrances that celebrities use. These entrances are used by airport staff typically, and they use it for celebrities to remain private. If a celebrity does not want to be seen, they will not be seen. And we have seen this example before when people would anticipate BTS to come out of the airport and we find out that they had landed hours ago and left already without using the main entrance. Other things to keep in mind is that reporters and paparazzi are often tipped off by the publicist of a label. Very common industry practice. So sometimes, not all the time, they'll notify a paparazzi to come at the airport and take photos of the members. And this is why idols dress up in nice clothes and designer clothes when walking through the airport. Otherwise, in times where maybe the paparazzi was not called by the label, so the artist doesn't know, and the paparazzi just shows up. So you'll see an idol with no makeup and in sweats and just not completely photo ready. Now, going back to Jungkook, people were accusing the people who showed up at the airport as stalkers or bad people. And this idea that if you showed up at the airport, you are a bad fan. I'm not encouraging others to go and show up everywhere that an idol goes, especially to private areas that are not allowed, but simply watching or seeing your favorite idol at the airport is not a bad thing unless you physically try to touch or hurt them. Then yes, it's bad. But simply being there and seeing him walk by is not. There are literally so many people that were there and reporters there to single out the fans who don't normally see Jungkook and maybe came all the way from across town just to see him. It's unfair to say that they're stalkers when they're just sitting there in peace and the information of Jungkook flying out was all public and publicly streamed by news sites. And the information might have been given by a label to the reporters. Jungkook had talked about how sasaengs make him uncomfortable. There was one time where a fan grabbed Jungkook and he confronted the sasaeng by staring at him or her, being like, "Are you serious?" He also recently showed footage of who he believed to be a sasaeng calling his hotel phone. And of course, there's plenty of sasaeng pictures of BTS on their plane that at one point they had to mention that they were going to switch over to private jet for BTS's safety. So do you think this is some of the many ways Jungkook has confronted sasaengs and told them not to be at the airport in fear of having his flight broken into? Or do you think fans seeing him at the airport does not constitute sasaeng behavior? I am curious to know. I also think a lot of these people take that as a sign that Jungkook would be uncomfortable with people meeting him at the airport, but keep in mind, Jungkook and Big Hit are so rich that if they didn't want people to see him, they wouldn't. You rarely ever see Justin Bieber walk through the airport on business nowadays, some vacation paparazzi pictures, but typically he's not crowded or mobbed. And this is because the paparazzi was likely not tipped off by a publicist, maybe by the airport staff, who knows? But for business trips, Justin likely is taking a private jet or going through a private entrance. So when I say if a celebrity does not want to be seen, they can make that happen. So if we are seeing them, that is likely their choice 90% of the time. Let me know what you think and make sure you check out my Patreon for more videos, link down below. I think it says lovely comment right here. Love you, bye.